if you would lose all that you have one day, what would you do the next day?
Start a new company.
Okay.
Totally. And I'm not afraid of losing everything. Money is not me.
We were talking about before you came about the difference of building a business here in Denmark and building a business, for example, in America.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be easier to build the things you built in America?
It's a very good question because I've built businesses in Denmark and in America.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I can tell the difference. I think it's easier to build business in Denmark because it's so small, and it's harder to scale in Denmark because it's so small.
Okay.
On the other hand, it's very difficult to build a business in the US because the market is so big. But on the other hand, when you succeed, the market is so many times bigger than the Danish market that you can succeed with like 50 times bigger than only staying in Denmark.
Okay.
So what I've been, I have had success with building businesses in the US when we made the breakthrough via online marketing, for instance.
Okay.
And then the market is just many times bigger and you can scale a lot easier. But in Denmark, I've succeeded building something small and then build on top of that small steps. And then you can build a nice company in Denmark.
I wouldn't imagine it would be different. I imagine it would be the other way around because like here, it would be harder to hire people and all the HR things here in Denmark than in the US.
But the competition in Denmark isn't really there. But the competition in the US is much harder, more money among VCs and entrepreneurs that have succeeded before. So in Denmark, you are like the first person to make AI, and then you can just move ahead.
Okay.
But no one will know what you are building, but you will get some clients, and then you can build on top of that. And of course, now, today, most people know lots of stuff about AI. But in general, I think it's easier to build a business in Denmark, but hard to scale.
Yeah. Do you have a notebook?
Just officially, I would like to say thank you very much for allowing us to record with you.
Of course.
I think you might be actually the coolest person I have ever spoken to when it comes to the, what I'm hoping to do with my life.
Yeah.
And just to have somebody like you, like speaking to me and speaking to us, just giving us some advice maybe later or while we're talking. I really appreciate that you have allowed us to record with you. I'm really looking forward for this conversation.
Thank you very much. And I've been looking forward to this conversation as well.
I'm very happy to hear.
And thank you for getting to my home instead of me getting to your office.
Yeah. Everything that we can do to make it easier for...
Yeah, you succeeded in that, doing that.
I'm very, very glad for that. In the beginning, I would like to ask you, how did you grow up? Are you coming from is it called affluent? When you have are you coming from a family that actually were very entrepreneurial?
Yep.
Or how was it for you to grow up?
Actually, it's a good question. My dad has been not a CPA, not like an accountant, but he has been very focused around financial stuff. And my mom has been working at with elderly people, being very, very creative around them. But I've only had one person that was really an entrepreneur in its sense. And he moved from Denmark to the US, and it's 50 years ago. The rich uncle from the States.
Okay.
He moved there and built a business around steel. So he had a factory doing stuff with steel. But he has not been the inspiration to do what I do today. The inspiration comes from both my mother and my dad. So my mother has always been very creative. You can do what you want. You don't have to be something within the education. You can just do whatever you want. And my dad said, okay, you need an education. If it doesn't work, what you are doing, then you have some kind of a fallback. Mm-hmm. So he has been risk averse, while my mom has been more risk taker, or just do whatever you feel to do. So I think that has been a big part of how I started being an entrepreneur and the place where I am today.
Have you always had this kind of like feeling that I'm gonna make it? Like, is that something that you are born with, this kind of mindset?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm a very, very optimistic person. Sometimes too optimistic, but it carries me around in all different areas, and I take many different streets and directions, especially in my younger days. But I think it was inevitable that I would succeed. So that was for sure. But I was not focusing around, okay, I need to succeed with this. Yeah. I was just doing stuff that I found interesting or fun to do.
Okay. And that is the reason for your success, that you were basically just nerding out about something that you were really passionate about.
Yeah. I was not even focusing on like, okay, this is the company that I want to succeed with. I always had a business plan. Like, okay, now I'm building this, and the structure will be like this, and then the brand will be this, and then we'll go into market with that. Mm-hmm. And then maybe it failed, and then I would try to adjust things and do it again. So very persistent is a core capability.
Okay. How do you deal with failure?
Yeah, for me, failures is not a part of my vocabulary.
Okay, so it's a learning for you.
It's just learnings. So every time I do something that doesn't work, I just get a little bit smarter within that field or test.
Was that how you felt also when you were starting? You know, when you don't see all the accomplishments, was that also then, or did you actually learn how to transform? Like,
I think in the beginning, I was just trying many different things, and it was not a part of the success to succeed. The part of the success was, okay, now I tried and it was fun. Let's move to another project. Mm-hmm. So I was never in like, okay, this is I'm not good enough, or this project doesn't work. I failed. I think I've been very positive and feeling good about myself, even when it went wrong or didn't work as planned.
Was there ever a factor like that people knew about what you're doing, and then they find out that now you're doing something else, and now you don't, like, did it ever like bugged you somehow thinking about that?
No, probably not.
Okay.
I don't spend too much time on what people think about me and my products or companies. I'm much more focused around how people can use my products. How can I make sure that my product fits into their daily life? And that has brought me many good stuff and successes along the way.
Was that something you learned? Because now this is very much like, if we're gonna be a little nerdy about it, it's very much like a market like analysis type of thing, and like product fit to my, like all that. But did you learn these things in the university or like in your studies, or it was just something that you just naturally like developed?
I think it's a combination. So I have a degree, a bachelor degree within communication and PR. So I've used lots of that knowledge in order to spread the word around my new companies. And then I have a higher education on IT and sales, marketing. And that has helped me. How can I market these products online? And then I've been very creative. How can we do this differently compared to our competitors? So I've always been very intrigued about a product or market, looked at the competitors, strong and weakness, their weaknesses and what they were good at, and then just changed that into something else. So I always want to challenge some established brands or companies. If I can see, okay, they have a pretty good company or pretty good business, how can we disrupt that? How can we do it in a different way?
Is that what you did with Billy?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been doing lots of finance via Excel spreadsheets, and then my dad said, "Okay, now you need a real online accounting software." And then I looked up on the internet and I saw, okay, they were called Economic, the same name as today, and that was like, this is too difficult for me. I'm not good at this. So maybe you should change the way accounting works for people like myself. And then that was the founding idea of Billing, make accounting accessible for people that don't know anything about accounting.
It's actually the accounting that we use.
Nice.
So, and I love it. And when I found out that, because we're friends with Matthias, the guy who was filming you before, and then he said, "Oh, I'm doing some stuff with this guy. He's super fun." And I just checked you out. It's like, wait, he built the accounting software that we love to use. So it's really fun.
That's me and my team.
You mentioned team.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching some interview in the past that you talked about that you are really good at building teams.
Yeah.
What is it that you are looking for when you are building a team? How do you even find the people that you can really trust, or can you
It has become easier for me over the times. So the more you succeed, the easier it is to attract the people. So I get more and more people contacting me, but in the beginning I was not that well known within the industry or known at all. So then I just found people that I found we had the same values, and maybe they were not the best within their field, but we had the same mission, and then that was the starting point. I think it's very important to focus around, of course, capabilities. How good are you at something? But the way I've selected many of the people that I've been working with and built companies around has been they had great sense of humor, or they were nice people.
Okay.
They didn't see me as their boss. They saw me as a source of inspiration, motivation, and then we could build something great together. I come out of a family with 5 sisters, the only boy. So for me to be around lots of siblings have been like a foundation for me how life is.
Okay.
So I find it very normal to be around lots of different people with different characters, different capabilities, and to respect the differences between people. So I think for many people, I'm a very easygoing person to work with. At the same time, I'm also very strict and direct. So it's a funny combination that I'm very open-minded, but if we need to get to that goal, we need to work hard on doing that. Otherwise, we will not succeed. So I have a combination of two, like the soft skills and the more strict and hard skills set.
But usually people in IT, they're notorious for not being so good with people skills.
Yeah.
Well, did you have that before? Like, how did it develop?
Yeah. So I've never been a developer myself, but I have taken courses within development. So I can program C++ or C++, long time ago, HTML, stuff like that. So I have an understanding of how to code, but I think I'm more social than the average programmer, I think. But on the other hand, I would not be the best programmer if that was something that I wanted to spend time on. So I think I'm pretty social and extrovert as a person. But I like to stay focused and not to be interrupted, just working with my nerdy stuff. So I have both sides. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned before about exiting or leaving one company and starting something new, or being very focused and determined and fighting until you overcome the difficulties or whatever it is in the company that you are building. How do you deal with this exit part of moving on?
Yeah, so for me, the exit part is just a consequence of me not finding it interesting or fun to be at a company anymore.
Okay.
So it's just like, okay, now I think I'm bored, or this is not something that interesting anymore. So then I want to sell the company and do something else. So I've always stick to the company with my full energy as long as it takes for the company to succeed. But at some point, it becomes just daily life, and I'm not good at repetitive work tasks and continuously doing the same again and again, because I'm too energetic and running in too many different directions. So for me, I'm not attached as a human to a company. It's more like, okay, now it's fun. I like to be here, but I'm myself. I'm not the company. Even though sometimes it looks like I am the company, because I'm using my name and my face connected to the company, but I'm not that connected. Not even connected to the cars. I could just sell them, and then that was fun period of my life to have this car. Then let's sell it. So I'm not attached to things or companies at all.
What are you attached to?
My kids and my girlfriend. Yeah, and my friends and family. Yeah.
If you would lose all that you have one day, what would you do the next day?
Start a new company.
Okay.
Totally. And I'm not afraid of losing everything. Money is not me. Actually, I would rather live without money. But we are in a society where you need to have some money in order to pay for your electricity, and you need to get to work, meet your colleagues. You need money for being a part of society. But if I ever get a chance where I can disconnect and still have my friends and families, then I might be out of business, but that wouldn't bother me at all.
If you would start like from beginning, how would you do it? What would you do?
Actually, a good company where I just started it all. I started it in February 2024, was the electricity company called Altid Energi.
Okay.
It came out of me being provoked by the bigger electricity companies, in my sense, stealing people's money by hiding all their fees. And I thought, that's kind of annoying. And then I looked into my own bill, and I found out that I was paying 14,000 kroner per year in hidden fees. And I was like, that's a lot. And of course, I have a little bigger home than the average family. But again, I was like, that's not fair. How wouldn't it look like if it was a smaller apartment and there were hidden fees for 1,000 or 2,000 kroner per year? And I looked into it and I said, okay, I think there's room for improvements. And that was actually where I started Altid Energi. That was just because I was provoked and annoyed by the structure of all the electricity companies hiding all their fees, making lots of money, especially on top of the financial crisis, electricity crisis. And then I just found a CEO, found some industry people that understood the industry. And then I had marketeers myself and a branding person that I use on a regular basis, Pernille. And then we were just building it from scratch. And now, 9 months later, we have more than 5,000 paying customers, paying a little subscription fee.
Is it an app or?
It's more like a traditional electricity company, but we only take 18 kroner per month. And then all the electricity is paid, the price of all the electricity is paid directly to the production sites. So we are only making money on small subscriptions. And of course, we need to be 10, 20,000 clients in our user base before it becomes a profitable company.
And how does they usually do it, the other companies? Because you said you guys getting 18 krone on top of the actual direct costs.
Yeah.
How do they usually do it?
Yeah, so they have what is called a spottillæg, like an extra fee every time you use electricity. Then they have a hidden fee, and it's maybe 20 øre, like, I don't know, 20, 30 cents per, what's it called? Like every time you use the electricity. And they don't tell the customers about what are the fees on your bills and what are the actually cost of electricity. And people have the understanding that electricity is probably just the price that you see on your bill. But that's not true.
No.
Lots of hidden fees. So we just distract all the fees from the different bills, and then we tell the potential customers, here's a bill without the fees, and here's a bill with fees. And then we can say the difference between the fees and the direct cost, that's what you pay too much, or the fees that you pay.
Okay.
How would you go about, if you would start a new company, but you don't have your name, your like the ability to actually, that people are sending you the CVs already?
Yeah, that's a good question.
How would you go about that?
I will just turn time back 15 years when I started the first company. Or actually, that's 20 years ago.
Which company was it?
That was called Desert. So like a very dry name. I was just going from one shop to another, asking them if they needed a new web shop. That was how I did it.
Okay.
And the first person I sold the first web page to said, "Oh, you're just the guy I've been looking for." And she was very futuristic and envisioned. She wanted a real nice web page, and I could do it in Flash, which was a programming language that nobody used for web pages, but we managed to do it. And then when I made that web page for her, then she said, "You are going to meet my husband. He thinks it's really nice, the work you have done. And I've talked a lot positive about you." And then I met him. And he was the first investor in my second startup because he said, "Okay, I want to do something with you. You have the right energy, and you are like me 20 years ago." So meeting people that you don't know, maybe they give you access to some knowledge you didn't had access to without them, and then stay within your field of interests, or like something you know more about than the average. That's a good place to start. Just like Min Strøm, where Philip, he knew a little bit more about electricity and how to charge your electricity car, EV car. And then he gathered data because that was accessible. And then he built something great. Yeah. So it always start within something you are interested in and where you are a little bit better than the average. And I just finished high school, knocking on companies' doors saying, "Do you need a web page?" And they said, "What is a web page?" And it's like a business card online. Yeah. Okay. So I was one of the first people selling web pages to people when the internet was invented.
Do you think that the door-to-door approach would work today?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So it's a good access to your customers. You're getting feedback quickly, instantly. And maybe online marketing will be better in terms of scaling, but you will get so much valuable information from your core customers.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So don't be too far away from your customers. Then you get the feedback loop right in the beginning.
Very cool. You mentioned you had that guy investing in your second startup. Yep. Would you say that he was kind of like a mentor of yours?
Totally.
Totally.
Yes.
Do you actually have some other mentors nowadays, or?
Yeah. I have mentors in a sense where I always attach to people that are further down this street of success, and success can be many things.
Yeah.
But people that are often older than me, have tried more stuff than me, and I feel inspired by being in the same room as them. So I have had many mentors along the way, and what have happened for me, I've always passed them in their success because I was just improving what they taught me, and then I was adding to that. And I can see I've been mentor for some young people way back, and then I meet them again, then they are millionaires. So and they are younger millionaires than me. So sometimes success attracts success. So the law of attraction, if you will.
Yeah. Do you need to persuade people like that to become or like, is it easy to start mentoring, or like those people that mentor you?
Yeah, I think sometimes you're just attracted by people that you feel inspired by. And I think many of my mentors were like, okay, they saw a star in me that other people didn't. So I was always giving a little extra, not to improve, to show them that I was looking up to them, but more in a sense of, I respect your time. So what I present to you is something that I've spent many hours in order to make it look good enough for it. So I think my level of perfection was at its highest when I presented stuff to my mentors. I was taking their time very seriously.
That is very interesting.
What would be the steps you would take if you had to start something new now?
Always take a standpoint where I am. So if I understand the problem and I see there's a problem, and then build on top of that. So if I have some interests, let's say in cars, but it's hard to buy a car, then I would say, okay, why are the competitors selling cars in the way they do? It's not the optimal way. So I'm always questioning things within my field of interests. And that's always the beginning. Like, that's annoying. And then, my brain starts picking up. Could you do this in another way? So I have a long list of good ideas that I probably will never see again because I put it in my folder, good ideas for future work.
So you find a good idea, or you have many, but then you decide, okay, I'm going to put some energy on this one.
Yeah.
Do you find people that are more smarter than you in that area first, or do you start building a team? Like, what is...
So my reflection is, I have a good idea, but I know I can't build a good company without the right people around me. So I always start when I know I have a team that covers most of the problem, but not everything, because that will take many years to be fully complied to a team where you can fix everything at one time. So when you have enough competences around you, enough people that know more about this problem than you do, and then I start. So I had an idea 10 years ago, and but I didn't have the right people around me, so I was like, put it on hold. And then suddenly I meet a person that is the best fit or match for that specific idea. And then I say, okay, would you like to build a company with me that is around this issue? And then it always starts like that. So I always find a co-founder. That was actually also how I started Wolfpack. I had this idea. I've had it for many years. And then I meet a guy, Oscar, coming from a Danish bank. That was a very innovative bank. And then I said, oh, would you like to start a company around expense management? I said, yeah. And then we started it.
So you get the team first?
Yeah. So the idea and then the team.
Okay. And then the execution afterwards.
Then the execution. Yeah.
How do you get like inspired with idea or this creative side of yours?
I think my inspiration comes out of curiosity, like questioning things. Why are they doing like this? And isn't there a more optimal way of solving that issue? And then I always question the competitor's way of solving that problem. Is that really the way that it should be solved? So I'm very rational and very logical thinking. And then I use my creativity to say, okay, what if we do the opposite of what they are doing? And then a new solution is brought to the table.
You said before we started You said you don't get rich by working for rich people.
What?
You don't get rich by working for rich people.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So many people think if you meet a rich person, then you also become rich. But there's not any logic to that. But many people want to work with rich people for some reason that I don't understand. Instead, you should work with people that have the same mindset as you have, or the same values, and then you can build some great together.
Oh, okay.
So in society, people are too focused around money instead of be focused around the same values. So if you have the same values, then you can start building something great. And it comes down to, you need to feel safe. If you want to be creative, you need to feel safe. Okay, I can say everything loud, even if it sounds ridiculous. Maybe that ridiculous thing you just said brought me to the next step in my idea, or the way I think, and then a great idea sparks out. And just because you're rich and you have sold a company, it doesn't mean you're a good person.
Right.
Or you can learn anything from that person. Maybe he was lucky. Maybe he had a rich mom, or maybe he was just a really big risk taker and he put it all on red, and then he
crypto bro.
Yeah. So I don't have respect for rich people just because they're rich. But I have respect for people that have been changing something or build something with their bare hands. That's more impressive. Making money is not impressive. Impressive in itself.
What would be like the type of people that would be a good fit for you in a team? You already said like creative freedom and a safe space for ideas. Are there any other values that you think you should look and spot in people for them to be a good teammate?
Yeah, they have to trust in themselves. So if you're a developer and I can see that they are actually proud of being a real nice developer, that's always a good sign. So I always spot people that are good at something, and it has to be better than the average. If I can spot that person, then for me it's easier to talk with that person and to also to glorify what the person have accomplished around something that most people don't understand anything about. And in that sense, you also show respect, that an acknowledgement. Okay, you can do something other people can't do, and that's like good for the ego, and it's good for the team spirit that we have gathered here together with people that are good at something different, and together we can build something great.
How much do you prioritize your time off, and like how much are you really caring about your time and how you spend it? Is that a big thing in your life?
Yeah. Very big thing. It's not a big thing of how much hours I put into a company. I'm not counting, and I will never be counting. But I spend my time very wisely. So, for instance, today I had a meeting, and when the meeting started, that was someone who wanted to sell something. And the first thing he said, now that we only got 30 minutes, we have to be quick. I was like, I almost said, you're lucky that you have 30 minutes, not just 15 minutes. And every time I have a meeting, I rather have a meeting of 15 minutes being efficient than 1 hour where people are talking and I'm like, what do you really want to gain from this meeting? So I'm always very specific. So I want to stand up, and I could, like for this interview, could be an hour, it could be 2 hours. I just need to know what's in it for me and what's the outcome of doing this. So I'm very focused on how can I create value for myself and for others.
Do you then, when you are, do you ever have hard time to balance how much you work and how much you rest? Or
I need 8 hours of sleep every day, and I always respect that. I don't go to bed if I'm not tired, because then I know I will have a bad sleep. But besides that, it's not an issue for me to work. So I work if it's needed, and I can take a break if needed. But my life a lot of my life is work. So in that sense, I probably work a little too much, but it's my interest, and I do it because I think it's fun.
Do you have some hobby on the side? Are you even able to? Because I could imagine your companies are your hobby.
Yeah.
But do you have actually something that you do?
Yeah, it's kind of a hobby to play basketball with my son.
Okay.
It's kind of a hobby to have cars like this. I don't call it a hobby, but I like to walk in the woods just to relax and be in the nature. I could be on a fishing trip with friends. But I don't have actually, my son is not playing computer games beside FIFA 24. So he draws a lot.
Okay.
And I like to draw as well. So now we actually spend time drawing things. So yesterday we were drawing all different presidents. So that was Trump, Joe Biden, Mette Frederiksen, Kim Jong-un, all kind of big personalities. So that's a hobby. I like to draw and to make political incorrect drawings just for the fun of it.
Does that fill you up then to be able to work?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's just relaxation. Yeah, be rejuvenated.
We just went for a little walk with you, and we saw like your cinema room.
Yeah.
And you said like your kids are the ones that use that the most.
Yeah.
What does it do anything to you to be able to provide that type of luxury to your children in that way?
What I'm providing to my kids and friends around me and family is just to say that you have all the opportunities in the world, but you have to do something. It doesn't just come to you naturally. So I use what I've overcome or what I've built to show the way. And it is luxurious when you have your own cinema with 25 people or for 25 people. But I hope it inspires more than its pleasure. So when I have a car like this, it's more for inspiration than to show off. Even people like, okay, it is because you want to show off. And I like, if you saw me half a year ago, I had a long beard and too long hair, and I looked like a homeless person. My girlfriend said that was just like, yeah, because my look is not important for me, but it's more important what I say. Yeah.
Okay.
That is super interesting.
Yeah.
You have you're author of 10 books, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And you just mentioned it's very important what you say, how important it is of like all those books for it is around your business, or it is.
Most of my books have been written while I've been developing some software. Or my team has been developing software. So it just takes lots of time to build nice products. So I've had a lot of spare time, and the books were about how to build a company, how to build a team. I really like to help other people. And I also like to take all my knowledge, put it down on a paper, and then give it to people that are interested in reading it. And it's always it's also a way of it's easier for me to talk about the different topics if I've had written it down. So it's also easier for me to explain why I'm doing stuff in a certain way if I've explained or written an entire book about the topic. So it's also easier to have a talk about how to build a team if I just wrote a book about it. So it's also a way of structuring my many crazy thoughts.
Do you have a favorite one?
I have many. No.
10.
10 favorite books. It's not my own. No. Yeah, I have one called The A Player, but it was just a book about how do you work in an optimal way as an entrepreneur. So it was, how can you make sure that you are surrounded around the right people, not people that don't work enough with your core vision. So that's one of them. And then I had one called Grandma's Old Recipe.
Okay.
It came out of my grandmother making meatballs in a very special way, and we always loved to eat them, but no one knew around her recipe. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a book, What is the Secret Recipe of Building a Successful Company? Yeah. So that's just the best title, I think.
Do you still spend time like studying and, like developing yourself? Or is that something that you value? Or
actually, I have two kids, 3 and 9 years old. So I've spent more time being educated by them than by books. But I love to read books.
Okay.
I really enjoy reading books about all kind of different topics. But now I've prioritized my time.
Sure. If you could pick maybe 2 books, something around entrepreneurship, what would you recommend? Which books?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably there's a book written by Peter Thiel, the other founder of PayPal, not Elon Musk, but his co-founder. It's called 0 to 1.
Okay.
That's a real nice book because it captures all the different necessities that are around a great company idea. And then one of my other favorite books, but that's not really an entrepreneur. It's called Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince. But it's not a factual book. It's more like an essay, I would say.
Okay. Why is it that you like that book?
It comes down to the quote saying, perfection doesn't come out of adding as much as possible. It comes out of to take away as much as possible without missing out on the essence of a product. So to stay focused around the very important part of your product is something that I can reflect to while I'm reading a book like that.
Mm-hmm. And what was the title of the book that you wrote? That you recommend?
One of them is called The A Player, and then From Lunchboxes to Millions, From Madpakker til Millioner.
Okay, and that's
that's my latest book. That's about how I started the accounting software Billy until the day I sold it. So it's more like a manual. How did I build Billy?
Was this the one that you made inspired by your grandma?
Like no, that was Grandma's Secret Recipe.
Grandma's Secret Recipe. Okay,
and that's actually in English.
Okay,
the other one is in Danish.
Cool.
Yeah.
I maybe would like to ask you a bit more personally.
Yeah.
But you are also free to say no. But what was the most difficult time in your life? Do you have such a thing? And how did that shape you into a person that you are today?
I think I've had difficulties finding a girlfriend that could understand me. Because my brain is very, very weird and sticks in many different directions. But when you are in a partnership, there are some certain rules and expectations, especially expectations that sometimes can be very hard to meet when you are as creative that I am. But I think my girlfriend, we have 2 kids. She got pregnant 2 weeks after we met. So there's been a roller coaster, to say. and that's a little understated. So that has taken up lots of my thoughts on how to be a part of a family with 2 kids that are also very creative and they have their own personalities. And my girlfriend certainly also has her personality, and I have my own personality to make that into a real nice combo. That has taken some time.
If you would have one advice for that you learned from fatherhood, what would that be?
That the circle is closed when you get your first kid, especially when I got my son as the first kid. I was like, okay, now I understand how my dad looked at me when he got me. That was difficult to understand as a kid, like, I'm just your son and that's it. But when you become a dad yourself and you have your son in your arms, then you connect something greater than yourself. Yeah, that has been a real big lesson for me.
Did that lesson influence you somehow also within the entrepreneurial way, or it didn't have
I don't think too much, but I think it's hard to detach your kids in the way you move around in life. So I want to show the path to my son, but I also know he will find his own path, and the same for my daughter. But it is a great inspiration to have kids. That's for sure.
Great inspiration.
Yeah.
So like also for
in life in general.
Yeah, definitely. So life becomes more fragile when you get kids, when you have kids. But at the same time, it also opens up new doors into life. What is important, especially because we have a life as we have. Many talks. We talk about what if we didn't have all that. So it doesn't change anything. These are just things. What is more important is everything inside you. So you become very aware of what matters and what doesn't matter. That, especially for me, it has been inspirational.
What is the next big thing for Werner?
Oh, that's a good question.
What's the next step?
I think, I have many steps. But the next big thing is probably to launch Wolfpack, as we have added lots of different features so we can pay bills in a very efficient way and between companies and integration to your accounting software and bank. But it's a very complex product. So in a more interesting space, I think it's within electricity. So I become an owner of Min Strøm, and I'm an owner of Altid Energi. And that industry has taught me a lot throughout 2024. So I think all that knowledge can be brought into new, greater companies.
Okay. So you already have some ideas.
I have some ideas, yes.
Oh, I'm looking forward to see.
Yeah.
How do you, because you said you have to make a great company, you need a good team.
Yeah.
Is there any other essential things for the startup to?
Definitely. Never start a company in an industry where there are no competitors. And that sounds counterintuitive, but it means start in a market where there are obsolete old companies, where their product is not good enough seen from a modern perspective. There are rooms for improvements, but yet they are still making money. So you know if you succeed, there will be money in the market, and you know who is your opponents.
That's a very good advice.
Yeah. So have interest in something, start a company within your interest, make sure that there are competitors in that market, and then find the right team and be the motivator for that team.
So that's your main role in the team that you build as the motivator?
Yeah. and the visionary person. I'm a hard worker, but I'm not a part of operation. That's not where my skill sets are best. People are better at structure, and I have my own structure, so I'm not running in different direction. It can look like, but I always have a plan. Yeah.
I have a bit more personal question from my perspective.
Yeah.
You have acquired very nice things. We are here and we can admire what you've done, and like it truly inspires me, as you said. I don't feel like you're boasting. I truly feel inspired. Is that something that a person like me should strive after?
I think no matter who you are, you should strive for things that make you happy. So, and it can take time to find out what that is. In my early age, I was lucky to find out, and it was all about freedom.
Okay.
But it could be different for you. But for me, it's always about not to be restricted to do something. So I want to be like a free man. And that's why I could also live in the woods, and I would be happy. And that's why I'm not attached to my things and the things that normally people would admire. So find the essence of what drives you. And normally, for most people, I think it's about being free and do something you love and like with friends or colleagues that you enjoy being with, and not how much money you can make down the aisle or down the street road. Yeah. So I think hopefully it can inspire, but don't forget your focus, what is important in life. And I actually showed a picture of my house and my car, and then I had my 2 children and my girlfriend next to it. And then I asked the audience, what do you think is most important for me? The cars and the house and the wealth, or my family? And people were like, of course, family. And there you got the answer. So strive for focusing on, focus on the right things. Makes you happy.
All right. Do you guys have more questions? Yeah.
You mentioned before, like about you have several books about. I don't know if it's several books about team building, or but it's a topic that you definitely spoke a little bit today.
Yep.
How do you build a good team?
I'm building a good team by making sure that people have the same values as I have. Not that my values are better than others, but in order to have the same culture and we are fighting for the same thing or building around the same vision is very important. And if you have that, then the team is like an organism. It can change. It changes during the way throughout a journey of a new company. So if people are adaptable, then that will help the success, because people shouldn't start a company in order to become a millionaire. They should start a company because they want to change things. Yeah.
Interesting.
And find people that think like that.
Yeah. You mentioned that they should be adaptable, but are you also adaptable?
Very adaptable. You just throw me into some dirty hole and then I will find a way out. Yeah. I'm a fixer, so I like to fix things.
Yeah, I saw a welding machine there.
Yeah,
I was quite surprised.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's also a hobby.
What
to weld things, to build things, to
be practical.
Yeah, being practical.
Cool.
You also mentioned that one of your skills is motivating people, as also, I believe, in the leadership position.
Yeah.
How do you do that? It's different for, let's say, from one company to another, or for teams, different teams that you manage.
I think to be a leader, you have the talking stick. And if you have the talking stick and you don't want to take people's time, you have to say something clever. You have to help them in the position that you have been given or taken. And if you are there, then I can speak at an event. I can speak to one company, or I can speak to all my companies at the same time. It doesn't change the fact that people are looking at me. So in that sense, I'm trying to say things that are helping people to choose the right direction in the place where they are.
Okay, so you motivate them through basically showing them the picture of the future that you have in your head.
Yes. So I envision something, then I share that vision with people where I see that is relevant for them.
Cool. All right. So as we always do in the end of our podcasts, we because this podcast is called Start Now, and we are trying to motivate young people to start now.
Yeah.
As we were once before we started doing something, we also needed that kind of like kick in the butt to. Yes. What would your advice be to people that are kind of like thinking about maybe I should do something?
Okay, that's a good one. The younger you are, the less risk you have around you. So it's much easier to start when you're young. It's much easier to make mistakes, but you learn. You're a quick learner when you're younger. You are not like attached to a family. You don't have a big house and all that. So you're much more risk taker. So just to start, not because you want to be successful, but because you want to learn. That would be the best advice.
Thank you, Werner, very much for allowing us to come to your garage and talk to you.
Yeah, great.
It was a great honor and a huge privilege for us. So thank you for your time. And yeah, guys, please subscribe to the channel and do all those things that people on YouTube do. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.